Yeah, so my best good girl is dying of lung cancer. So if you hear a dog coughing in this video, that's because she and I will be hanging out. I actually want to talk about a piece of news that came out this morning that directly ties into my videos that I filmed yesterday about Trumpers and what they believe about what Elon Musk is doing. How not only do they not believe it's a coup, they believe he is draining the swamp, a billionaire with massive defense contracts who's been investigated for years until obviously all of those investigations ceased with the beginning of this corrupt administration, that he is draining the swamp, that he is going to bring accountability to the government, that he's really good with finances, a guy who took one of the most profitable social media platforms of all time and completely obliterated it. Twitter is a husk of its former self, a carved out, unprofitable Yahtzee husk. By the way, you can find me on Blue Sky right here. So when folks were in my comments, both on my YouTube and on my Facebook, and even a couple here, because occasionally my TikTok videos do get shown to the MAGA side of TikTok, rarely. Folks are all vomiting up the same talking points, and I don't know if they're getting them from Fox News. I know that folks in Trump's administration are also regurgitating these talking points, and that Musk is tweeting just absolute garbage bullshit, and folks are believing it. It's like that Musk thinks he can speak things into being, or if something leaves his mouth, it's like gospel truth. And the folks consuming his tweets reinforce that narrative. They are telling him, we are uncritically accepting everything you say as factual, as accurate. Which is one, embarrassing for them, but two, as I've talked about in the past, a lot of conservatives come from evangelical culture where they have been indoctrinated since childhood. They've literally had it beaten into them that they must unquestioningly obey authority, as long as that authority is not Barack Obama or Kamala Harris, a white man in authority. They must unquestioningly obey him. They must believe what is coming out of his mouth, that God has placed this man in authority over them. And I think very much so, evangelicals have conflated success as a billionaire and having power, having corporate power with God-ordained authority, which is part of how we have gotten into a situation where we have a fascist plutocracy that is attempting to take over America. So folks are believing things that the Muskie says, like he is just conducting an audit. I've repeatedly seen, I made a video about this, that folks are claiming he has read-only status, that he's just viewing those files and he's finding corruption. And in my last video, I said, let's just set aside for a moment the fact that these guys don't know what an audit is, clearly. These departments that Muskie and his little band of Shitler youth have their grubby little mitts in, they already have audits conducted on them. And the folks who would have oversight and are in charge of scrutinizing, looking at the books and making sure everything is above board, the inspectors general, Trump is already trying to fire them, right? And I realize there's ongoing litigation about that because it's really illegal. He has no authority to fire them. But an audit is a comprehensive look at the books, right? And it takes a long time to compile that information, to sort through it, and to understand where money is being spent. Is it going where Congress has allocated it? Because let's get back to the root of this here, that these are funds allocated by Congress. It is the constitutional role of Congress to control the purse strings and to allocate those funds. And the executive branch and whatever made up department that it's not a real government department that DOGE happens to be, and the unelected person of Elon Musk, they do not have the authority to subvert, to cease the funding, the allocation of funds that Congress has laid out. He is tweeting like hourly where he is cutting and shutting things down, what spending he is immediately seizing and siphoning off and stopping. That's not how an audit works. You have to go through everything and get a comprehensive and detailed picture. Like, what is happening is not an audit. And again, folks claiming that he's got read-only status. You're not even consistent in your own messaging, and the propaganda that you're consuming is blatantly contradictory. Because you're talking about all of the ways that he is immediately cutting out all of this excess and all of this waste, and then you cite a bunch of nonsensical figures. Like folks who just don't know how to read data or are intentionally twisting it and falsely representing it, claiming that the government put millions and millions into Politico when that's not true, claiming that the government spent $600 million on sushi. These are all just really embarrassing, and you uncritically believe them because Muskie is tweeting them out. So it's clearly not read-only because we're seeing all of these programs shut down. We saw the entire U.S. aid office shut down as political revenge. Muskie was enacting his political revenge. All of those folks have been told to stay home, and the funds have already been cut off. So how is that a read-only audit? But let's move beyond that for a second. The Washington Post today is reporting that Musk's completely made up, not legitimate Department of Governmental Efficiency, which is not a real federal department, is feeding sensitive federal data into AI. They're doing this to figure out where else they can cut money in order to justify and to fund further tax cuts for billionaires. All of the money they're cutting out of the budget is being done so that billionaires can get a tax break. Not you and me, not the working class. Our taxes are going up. But scarier than that, that is part of his broader plan to deploy AI across the federal government. This is a tech bro who has managed to destroy one of the most successful social media platforms of all time, whose technologically advanced auto company has endless software and hardware problems. A dude who has to buy titles like inventor because he actually can't invent anything. This is the person we trust to release AI into the government to search all of our data. If he's putting our data, that's yours and mine, information about us, individuals, our private data, he is violating already the Privacy Act of 1974. So they're already violating federal law. Musk and his little band of Hitler-Jugend, they are violating the law by accessing our private information. Looking forward to that class action lawsuit against all of them for stealing our identity. This is after they've already violated Article 1, Sections 8 and 9 of the Constitution and usurped the power of Congress. They are taking our information and putting it into a program where they cannot take it out, and we do not fully understand the ramifications of that act. There is a reason the government has not green-lighted this behavior before. Cavalier would be a generous word. Unconscionably irresponsible would be a little bit closer to accurate to describe the way that Muskie and his little band of boys are behaving. There is no audit. There is no read-only. There is the destruction of everything from U.S. aid to the EPA to your Social Security, your Medicare, your mom and dad's Social Security and Medicare. I realize that conservatives live in a different universe and they have a very different worldview and their brain works very differently. We have two parallel universes operating in the United States. Our neighbors are walking in a different plane than we are. They have a different lived reality than us right now. And honestly, that is horrifying, and I don't really know how to overcome it. I know more people should be watching Knitting Cult Lady because I think deprogramming from cults, that kind of information, that kind of psychology, that is stuff that we need to be accessing and learning about to understand the dynamic that is going on. And I don't know that there is a way to reach conservatives. It is just so frustrating to me that they have this complete inability to apply critical thinking. And a very severe problem with pseudo-intellectualism. They think they're really smart, but then they unquestioningly say something that someone in leadership tells them, and they don't know how to accurately read a scientific study or interpret data. Again, Trump said he loves the uneducated. And I do wonder, what is the threshold? What is the tipping point at which these folks are going to realize how fucked they are? Because the reality is these are working class Americans and it's going to have a detrimental impact on them in many, many layers, many layers. They just aren't afraid yet because they don't understand what's coming. And I have said this before, but I don't actually think it's our job to enlighten them. I don't think it's possible. Just like folks who deconstruct from religion, folks who deconstruct from these kind of cults have to do it on their own time. And the more we wave facts and data in their face, the more they are going to double down, the more their confirmation bias is going to cause them to dismiss whatever we're saying. But since I am getting the read-only and audit comments so much, especially on YouTube, I felt that this was important to discuss.